Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live on a Tuesday, July 13th at 11:45 a.m. It's the middle of the month. CPI is over 5. If you know, annualize it, it's over 10%. And I want to talk about perspective today because it's grossly misleading. Even my perspective is misleading in many regards. And I assure you that some of the most influential words that you read on Twitter are definitely misleading. Why? Because they're not coming from your perspective. They're not coming from the perspective of the general public, the perspective of a person making $500 a week after tax, probably less. What is 15 times 40? If you're making $15 an hour minimum wage, you're making $600 a week before tax. You can imagine whatever the various tax brackets and multiple sources of income, who knows? But point being, whatever, many people are making less than $15 an hour minimum wage. And that is a brutal income. And that's a true statement. It's hard hitting. It's an appropriate word. It's not a hyperbole. And that is the perspective that I think is the most important. Not someone making $1 million a year, $5 million a year, even a $500,000 a year, even $250,000 a year talking about inflation and deflation. So if you're making $2,000, $3,000 a week in income, 5% inflation does nothing. And you're just talking. You're just talking about numbers. You're talking about what does it mean. But when you're pulling in $400 or $500 a week, and rent is $1,000 a month, and that's half your salary, and rent just shot up to $1,200 a month, and going to the supermarket's an extra $50 a month, and that makes a lot. That makes a big difference. That's freaking brutal. So that's the perspective I like to think about the most. And, and a lot of folks in their commentary is a little cut and dry regarding inflation and deflation. We're talking about saving money and making money. And there's really a lot of financial desperation. So it's quite frustrating for my mind, or at least the direction that my mind goes. So let me answer some of you guys' questions, and I'll try and remain focused on this perspective that I like to look at things from. We'll try and get some good ideas onto the stream today. Today's episode, Spot Change Angel, the non-custodial swap exchange for social goods. Stop depositing on exchanges, not your keys, not your crypto, non-custodial DeFi, or nothing at all. Bam, let's pop it over to the main screen and see who's in the stream. Let's go back up to the top. Yeah, cost basis for anything that's yielded is 0, Andrew. I mentioned that. Adam, yeah, it's not retroactive, my friend. That's a big no-no. Ear ends in the house. Warren, show will go on. Boom, baby, you need more crypto. Frozen, ladies and gentlemen. Wave mappers, Noah, my man. Patrick, when Lambo, just kidding. Good morning, everyone. We all know. Do we all want a Lambo? Do you really want a damn Lambo? What I want is freedom. I want to be able to wake up in the morning and do what I want to do when I want to do it. I'm partially the way there, meaning I'm able to make choices that are a little bit more liberal than I used to when I was younger, and that's partially because of my mental state. But true freedom is when you don't have to work, but you choose to work and you want to work, and that gives you freedom of speech. You don't have freedom of speech really if you could lose your job based on something you want to say. So you're really not free. So unless you're financially free, you don't even have base fundamental rights. You could say what you want, but there's some devastating consequences. And freedom from those consequences, that's some serious stuff right there. So we're in a pretty bad situation, in my opinion, considering what the founding fathers wanted for our people, for the country, for the citizens. You know, financials have become oppressive. And maybe it was worse because I'm 38, and who knows what it was like in the 50s and in the 1900s. So what the heck am I talking about? It was probably worse economic conditions back then. It was probably harder to to achieve financial freedom. So they, arguably, maybe we're in an incredible state. Can you imagine that? That our current financial state is ridiculously incredible as compared to like 1900, where much many more people are financially well off. Sure doesn't feel like that. FM Hex is exploding in price. Okay, that's cool. Um, F Dub, can you break down and give your opinion on maybe how you would split capital capital between staking CVX and staking? Well, it's not for me to make those recommendations. I can mention what I do is it's probably about 10 to 1 CVX CRV versus CVX. That doesn't mean anything with regard to a good decision. That's just my subjective way I express my opinion of the market. I find CVX increasingly volatile, but CVX is also representative of more of a governance rights ownership that owns more CRV, about 6 or 7 to 1. So that's a very powerful thing from a long-term perspective. In the end, looking at the Bitcoin chart here, I expect significant volatility. I expect markets to react accordingly. This is a big crab walk, but it's a crab walk down in many regards, and it's not nice looking at the daily 200 EMA with the downward slope on it. Hey everyone, hope you are well. I have freedom already, but an off-road Lambo might be fun with free fuel and maintenance for life. Yes, indeed, that would be nice. um, Matthew, nice to catch you live. Thanks for having us. You're very welcome, everyone. The show is important to me because it allows me to talk about the things that are on my mind. And we see the CPI print today, and we see we're able to do the annualization of what the inflation rate is, and we're able to also feel the inflation rate for ourselves. And these are things that are not really talked about. Everyone in the crypto space talks about making money, and that to me is just not the right perspective. People want to buy an asset and let it go up in price to sell it at a higher price, and that's frustrating because most people that try that don't do that. Like FM with Hex, how much are you making on a daily basis? Dollars in your bank account. Are you selling Hex every day to pay rent? Are you selling Hex every day to pay your car insurance, your lease payments, your mortgage payments? If you're not making any money. It doesn't matter what the paper number is. What matters is your bills get paid. So buy low, sell high doesn't mean anything to someone like me. What matters to someone what matters to someone like me is paying bills and that type of freedom. Being able to potentially pay bills using the money assets make, that's crazy sauce. That's freedom, which means the assets are working for you and you're not working. Where you don't have to work, but you choose to work. So that's my goal. That's my pursuit. And if I have to do work to watch an asset from buy low to go up in price to sell high, that's work. I'm putting in work. What's the point? We're defeating the purpose of everything we're trying to do to achieve freedom. This is the Freedom Channel, boys and girls. I want to do less work. I want to have to do no work so I could choose to do the work I want to do. And even if you're in a position that's pretty liberal with regard to you choosing what you want to do, just the psychological state of not having to work is a massive psychological relief. It's that's probably overlooked. Um, Folks should not have to work; they should want to work, and that is also another problem. Do folks actually want to work, or are they just consumers and lazy and want to play video games and smoke pot all day? But that's not a problem for financial. That's a problem for education. That's a problem for parenting. That's an entire other topic of discussion. Joe says the crab walk down is an amazing opportunity for those of us that got into crypto on the last bull run. Yes, it is. I mean, if you're looking 4 years out, but if you put capital in now and you got to watch it go down 60, 70, 80%, and then in 4 years, it's $200,000. I mean, most people don't have a 4 year time horizon. Most people are investing capital that they can afford to lose. And it's a burden when that you watch the dollar denominated value go down. I mean, if you held Amazon through the 2000 correction, that's what it looks like on the chart at this point. you made a fortune, and that was a 95% drawdown, boys and girls. So you have to have potentially a massive multi-year time horizon. You have to allocate capital that is not necessary to cover monthly overhead, and you have to rest comfortably in your convictions that in the coming 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years, you've allocated value to the correct assets, and that's all there is to it. Less work, meaning you don't have to be buying low, selling high, and doing things like that. You don't have to do that. I mean, there's plenty of persons that make significant amount of capital gains with that process. Um, but hmm, that's just not something I advocate. I think there's increased risk because there's increased effort and mental exertion required in order to be successful at that process. And I prefer encouraging people to take less risk and work less. A very different perspective, and that's my perspective. And we got to remember the perspective that really matters, which is the average of the status quo. And the average of the status quo, it's pretty painful for people out there. We're very much in a state of financial desperation, and we shouldn't be gloating. If you buy an NFT and sell it for $5,000 gains over the weekend, don't gloat about it. It's my recommendation. There's really people suffering. I walked into Walmart the other day, and just honestly, you see people's eyes, and that's a painful experience for a lot of those employees. It's painful. And what folks will say, oh, but we have to work. It's what we do and have to pay our bills. Yeah, but that person's experiencing some serious pain. It's pretty demoralizing, depressing. It's pretty miserable. And that was what was expressed in the facial expressions. And anyway, so that was an experience I had. Pete, hey, no, appreciate your understanding and platform. Are you still watching for other yields in addition to CVXCRV? Sure, there's plenty. There's a million and one different cool options. I like that HOP protocol. That looks pretty cool. I wouldn't deploy any capital to it. I'll wait 6 months and I'll let the system prove itself. And what's nice is that's a stablecoin bridge between Polygon and Ethereum. Was it Phantom or was it BSC? But the point being, stablecoins. So let the protocol prove itself, and then yeah, I'll sure as heck be happy to deploy capital in stablecoin form to generate returns. But I don't touch anything new. New is risk. I mean, look what just happened to AnySwap V3. If so, Peter, you're saying if I'm still watching for other yields, yeah, always. But new is no. We don't do new here. We do old, tried and tested. We are the dividend investors of the crypto space. AnySwap v3 was exploited, and plenty of other protocols are constantly exploited on a daily basis. I don't want to use a new protocol. I don't at all. Oh, the new protocol has 1,000% APY. That's the last thing I would ever want to deploy my capital to. Crypto Plato. Huh, Plato, my man. Hey, Noah, thanks for the great info. Do you have any concerns about CVX CRV depegging from CRV? It was at 0.92% early today. That's a great opportunity to convert CRV to CVX CRV. People were selling because they fear that the market's going down. I don't really understand the significance of a peg with regard to the assets. I mean, if you're interested in selling, sure, the peg is meaningful. If you're interested in buying, you get a bonus if you're converting CRV to CVX CRV. But one CVX CRV is a CRV. Doesn't matter what the price of it is. It is a CRV. It's a locked CRV, a VECRV position. So it doesn't matter what the peg is. The price is irrelevant. The price is only is irrelevant relative to governance and relative to the interest it gives you and the power it gives you on the Convex platform. But with regard to price, it's only relevant if you're interested in liquidating your position. So that's just food for thought. Killis is in the house. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Hitting on a lot of topics today. You know, perspective is really what's on my mind lately because you see a lot of the The macro folks, they talk about inflation, deflation. The gold bugs talk about inflation. The big contrarian thinkers talk about deflation. But how can we think about anyway, let me answer some questions before I digress off a cliff into macro financial land. Andrew, how would you recommend laying out pros and cons for evaluating opportunity cost buying curve to enter the curve game versus building up curve 1 to 2 year time horizon through earnings only? I don't assign much risk to the platform. So you are correct in saying that opportunity cost is the appropriate evaluation. So in many regards, I don't see much opportunity cost at all because I see increased risk and other positions more of a speculative nature. So I see curve as probably the least speculative of plays that can be done in the crypto space, and the opportunity cost, considering the risk assessment and the speculation components, because curve obviously is a volatile asset, but the opportunity cost is low because speculatively over the coming years, it's just logical to assume that volume will increase because that's what volume does. More and more people enter the platform. So the opportunity cost is low because the speculative nature of the volume increase with the current platform is high. And that's a good period right there. Um, I mean, what other protocols are you guys looking at? I mean, you guys are at this point. You guys are welcome to shoot me off a protocol, and I'll give an opinion. Alchemix is cool. That's cool. You want that? Uh, um, oh my God, I was thinking of a protocol. Was it Ruler protocol? Ruler. It's a cool protocol. I don't want to own volatile assets. I mean, I don't consider Curve a volatile asset because I consider it a purchase and I have no interest in liquidating it. I don't care what it goes down to because I care about the yield that's being generated on a weekly basis. Whether I'm wrong or right, that's what I'm going to test, and I'm going to put that hypothesis to the test. Now, rule is pretty interesting. It was non-liquidatable debt positions. So this protocol has caught my eye. But work is required to maintain or manage a debt position. So once again, I'm pushed back from an interest standpoint to curve and convex because I don't want to put in the work. I don't want debt, to manage interest payments, to leverage and generate increased capital gains. I don't want that. I don't want to make as much money as possible. What I want to do is make money doing no work. Anchor, cool, 20%. That's a huge amount of opportunity cost. Um, Terra staking 20%. It's not on Ethereum, so I'm not too interested in it really. I think Ethereum is the center nexus of everything else. So I don't know. So here's the biggest question. Let me break it down. So many people talk about Anchor, and I'm like, 20% yield. It's basically 0% real yield considering inflation. You're not outperforming monetary debasement, so you're basically getting 0% on your money. Now, let me ask you, do you get daily yield? So on Friday you could take out a paycheck? Or are you using it as savings? Because if you're using it as savings, 20% isn't savings. It's like a 0% real yield. It's not outperforming inflation. So seems like just a huge amount of opportunity cost. It seems like it's kind of churning and doing nothing to me. You need increased yields. Now, unfortunately, if yields on CVXCRV drop to 20, 30%, anything above 20%, and I'm content because 20% is that debasement number that at least that I consider. But there's very few opportunities out there that don't have an increased risk profile to achieve greater than 20% yield, 25, 30%, give or take. But at the end of the day, if you guys are deploying capital, sure, you could consider it savings and accumulation. But what's more meaningful is a revenue stream, yield, interest, a salary. And that's the way I treat my capital. And that's my goal. So if I'm not getting daily, weekly yields, it's not necessarily a position of interest to me. Garth, on the same page, yes, sir. Andrew, you're welcome. Anchor Protocol, it's great. It's nice. It's cool. Ohm 3, what it was, Ohm was, I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff. You got Popsicle, and you got Alchemist, and wasn't Ohm related to that stuff? See, I don't even know a lot of the things that are going on. But if you find a position that has a decreased risk profile, is decreasingly volatile compared to other assets, is not, maybe it's a stablecoin position that generates good yield. I don't have all the answers. What I have is the questions and the conversation that you guys need to think about yourselves to try and figure out these markets also. What I have is a process. And that process really is opportunity cost evaluation. Peter, what do you have? What do you think about putting three curve reward into Aave and then borrowing for a salary? Well, if you're borrowing capital, it needs to be paid back, which means your other assets need to be generating the revenue stream or the servicing expense. So again, I'm not a fan of debt positions unless you have a way to generate yield. So you know, traditional dividend investors argue nowadays that if you don't have a mortgage on your property, you're missing out on an opportunity. And on the contrary, I very much argue that not having debt is a luxury and it's a relief of a burden. And that's really what I focus on nowadays is relief of burdens, relief of stress, relief of responsibility, less work. The camera's all messed up today. I want to do less work, not more work. I don't want to manage and service debt. I don't want to have to psychologically understand or that I have to remember that I have to look at my health factor or my collateralization ratio to make sure I don't get liquidated or have a margin call. I don't want that. And I wouldn't want that really for anyone. And this really is, heading down the road of financial desperation that we're all kind of in. Because if you could go to work and put your money in a bank account and you're getting a good interest and inflation was like 0%, and you were getting 15% of your money in a bank account, we wouldn't be talking about any of this, boys and girls. We wouldn't be talking about any of this. We wouldn't have, everything after 2008 would have been completely different. Peter Lee, more three curve will pay it back. Okay, that's a process. Uh, but why would you take salary in the form of, okay, if you take salary in the form of debt, but the second you get your three curve, that's income, which has a cost basis of 0. So you taxed on that just the second you click the claim button. So it doesn't really achieve anything taking a salary in the form of debt. Now, if you could take a salary in the form of debt and bypass the income, but that's not possible. But I see, where you're thinking, and there's possibly strategy and methodology to achieve favorable tax treatment. I mean, Banteg and token tax were talking the other day about Uni V3 positions basically being not taxable because of the way the contracts are structured. I found that conversation quite interesting. Less work, still my fave state of being. It's all about less work, boys and girls. Nobody wants to work more. Well, maybe if you love what you do, if you're a painter and you're painting, sure. Put in a couple hours over the weekend. But most people don't do what they love to do. And most people are looking at the crypto space for some way to break free to achieve exorbitant capital gains. Meanwhile, most people are buying assets, watching it go up in price. They're not selling them. They're taking no salary, and then they watch them go down in price. The vast majority of people, like 99,000% of people that bought Doge, watched it go up, watched it go down, I made no money, but that's the same thing with the legacy securities markets as well. Most people have not taken profits. So any asset you have that you're not paying bills with, paying food bill, rent, child daycare, you're not paying bills with the gains, you're not doing anything. You have to, that's the whole point of this. And that's really where my conversations focus on nowadays. Um, so don't be desperate. Take a step back. Focus on work. Focus on breaking off a piece of your weekly income, diverting it to strategic locations, and not gambling, taking less risk, thoroughly digesting opportunity cost, and that's really how you select one position over another in a market that has unending opportunities. Deflation is talking about everything deflating, and the dollar is the only thing that has value. With the CPI print like this, what a mess! It's really hard to get a grasp of the whole nature of what we're dealing with. Price go up, price go down, inflation, deflation, inflation of the financial system, or inflation of consumer goods and housing prices inflation. Technology is deflationary. Bitcoin is disinflationary. What the heck are all these big words? Even I don't fully understand it all, but the whole point of the stream is we could talk about it at least, and you guys could get some questions out, and I can help clarify these ideas using words. And then semantics is a whole other complicated topic unto itself. Gary, how do I take my HODL, ETH, and BTC and create a salary with them? I wouldn't. I don't. I barely hold any Ethereum, and my Bitcoin's in cold storage. But at some point, you want to treat it like a business. So you're going to have to realize that Bitcoin and Ethereum are collateralizable assets. You probably want to watch like Michael Saylor and look at his corporate documentation, because in order to turn treasury, because that's what you said HODL, Ethereum and Bitcoin, but what you have is a treasury. And it's the same thing as a corporate treasury. So, how does a corporation manage their treasury to take on debt to expand business operations? And that's a learning experience. Um, you're going to be dealing with collateralization of debt positions. You're going to have debt servicing costs. You have a variety of tax implications, and you're going to have to use the borrowed capital to generate returns. Um, Otherwise, there's no reason to borrow the capital. The last thing anyone should ever be thinking about Ethereum and Bitcoin is selling it, is liquidation. You never sell your Bitcoin, ever. But you have to take out debt on it in the future. If Bitcoin goes to $1 million and you can take out $600,000 worth of debt, yeah, at 2% interest or whatever the heck it is. Someone dares give you 2% on 600 grand, you take it. And you buy a property, or you allocate towards something that generates more than 2% interest. The whole point is that's the business. You're borrowing debt at 2%, and that debt's able to make more than 2%. That's a business, and that's cash flow. So it's not easy, and it'll be a learning experience, Garth. Matthew, do you think three curve emissions can increase enough to offset the decrease of curve rewards and curve rewards? That's a complicated question. Sentence structure. Well, at point where three curve emissions increase enough to drag the overall APR up. Well, you're talking about APR in dollar denominated form, and that's quite misleading. What's most pertinent in my eyes is the amount of coins are not really, they're increasing. They're not decreasing. It's the dollar denominated yield that's decreasing. So if you look at three curve emissions are pretty much associated with uh, uh, total volume through the pool. So 244 mil, give or take. So there's your three curve emissions. The price of curve is ridiculously volatile. The price of CRV is ridiculously volatile. So I don't really look at the dollar denominated form of curve and And CVX, what I'm most interested in is three curve, because three curve is a dollar derivative and gives you claiming rights to a dollar stablecoin. Claiming rights, an LP position. Fancy way of saying an LP position. So the whole complexity that you have there, Matthew, with your observation is you're looking at the dollar denominated values. You don't really want to take profits on your curve and CVX because compounding those assets helps you retain proportional ownership of the overall circulating supply or lock supply of curve. And that's an imperative goal because that retains your ownership rights to the three curve revenue stream, which that's the speculative bet. The three curve, instead of a couple $100, if you so this makes about my position makes in V curve makes like $200 a week. And if it goes up 100-fold and it's $20,000 a week in stable coins, that'd be nice. So there's the speculative nature of the curve platform, not curve yield and not CVX yield, but three curve yield. Frozen, how much percentage do you have on curve revenue share pool fees with your current position? How much percentage do you have on curve? I'm probably about 60% convex, which is a combination of curve and CVX, and it's about a 10 to 1 CVX CRV versus CVX, if that helps you guys. And that's me, and that's, you know, hard to tell people. You can't tell people what to do. Meaning, someone buys now, it's probably going to go down. You're going to buy it, and the second you buy it, it's going to go down. Now, I've been holding my curve since it was. Uh, I've seen it obviously at $4 for a brief blip in time, but my curve was bought at like 30 cents, give or take. I've watched it go up, and I've watched them take away half the money. I watch it go up, I watch it go down. I'll check back in 4 years. And the entire time it goes up and down, I'm going to be generating income. And that's my interest in the position. The overall convex APR reward. Um, yeah, that APR reward is in dollar denominated form, which is misleading. This is misleading. You're looking at 65%, but it's 10% three curve, 23% CVX, and 32% CRV. So this 65% is broken down into a couple of different components. You see what I mean? So really all I care about is the three curve. Those are your dollars. Everything else needs to be compounded in order to maintain your proportional ownership of the pool positions. That's basically the way I could describe it. Anyway, let's wrap it up, my friends. It's a good stream. You know, it's hard to have your head high in times like these, as you know, people out there, suffering around the world, doing much worse off than we are in the States, and we're quite frustrated in the States ourselves. Matthew, thank you for answering my question. I agree the dollar denominated can confuse my thought process. Sure, it depends on what our goals are. Depends on how much we're speculating. It depends on our opportunity cost analysis. It depends if we're a net deflationist and we think the system is going to implode on itself, and the only thing you can have is dollars, because there's a lot of those types of people out there. Adam, since Convex has decoupled the governance rights and fees accrual rights and Curve with CVX and CVX CRV, do you think this could have any weird effects on the system incentives? Yeah, as Rect HQ talked about, you know, Convex Wars, CVX. Now the fight has become over ownership of CVX rather than CRV because Convex is just consuming more and more of proportional V curve ownership. The CVX yield, CRV yield doesn't mean anything. You guys should consider it zero. It was never an incentive. It was only an incentive if it was liquidated and sold for cash, or you could pay your rent. Um, but most people didn't do that. So using that, so the whole point of that incentive is really to retain proportional ownership of your curve position of your camera shit today. So I never treated that as salary. Um, your salary is your dollars, the dollars that you get. Anyway, Why do I have tax stuff up? Because I was thinking about here. So if people make $600 a week before tax, that's how many on average times 50. Let's say 50. So it's 30 grand. 12%. It's three and change. That's like 27, 26 grand a year. I don't know. Seems pretty tough out there considering the price of a house. You can't even buy a house anymore. This was quite a disjointed stream. Sorry, guys. I've had my head in a lot of directions. 12:21 p.m. on a Tuesday, July 13th. As always, I thank everyone for joining. Keep your heads up. Keep your head right. Don't get ahead of yourselves, and don't get irrational. Rationality means everything. The world could fall into chaos, and what's most important is that we retain ourselves and our rational thoughts and ideology, and our capacity to communicate, our capacity to not get angry, and that means everything. And that's how good ideas are shared back and forth. Twitter, we see it all the time. People just get belligerent and use the wrong tone or just aggressive or passive aggressive verbiage. That's unfortunate. We really all should get along. Maybe one day. Killis, you have a good one. Matthew, thanks. If life was so simple, we would all be bored. This keeps us engaged. Adam, you're very welcome, everyone. I wish you all a wonderful day. It's the early in the week, and I will see you all tomorrow. Peace.